I flew into Portland to visit my son Brandon for the first time in 2 years. He took me to a dive bar called the Copper Mug, said it was his favorite spot. While Brandon stepped outside to take a work call, the bartender lunged across the counter and grabbed my wrist. His hand trembled, a scar cut above his eyebrow. He whispered 5 words that turned my blood cold. "They're going to kill him tonight." Then he released me and walked toward the back. My heart hammered in my chest. Brandon pushed through the door, smiling, completely unaware. I tried to keep my face neutral as Brandon slid back onto the bar stool beside me, but my mind was spinning like a tornado. The bartender's words echoed in my head. "They're going to kill him tonight." Who were they? Why would anyone want to hurt Brandon? My son worked at some tech startup, wrote code, lived in a nice apartment downtown. Nothing dangerous about that. "You okay, Dad?" Brandon asked, concern creasing his forehead. "You look pale." "Fine," I managed. "Just tired from the flight." But I wasn't fine. I scanned the bar more carefully now, really looking at the place for the first time. The Copper Mug was exactly what you'd expect from a Portland dive bar. Dark wood, low lighting, old beer signs on the walls. Nothing unusual, except for the 3 men sitting in the corner booth. They wore expensive suits that didn't belong in a place like this. Their watches caught the light, probably cost more than my old sedan, but it was their eyes that made my stomach drop. Cold, calculating. And they were watching us, watching Brandon. "So, Dad, I'm glad you're here," Brandon said, taking a long pull from his beer. His hand shook slightly. I'd known this boy since the day he was born. I could read his moods like a book, even after 2 years apart. Something was wrong. "Tell me about work," I said, keeping my voice casual. "How's the startup going?" Brandon's smile looked painted on. "It's good. Really good. We're doing some cutting-edge stuff with cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. You wouldn't understand the technical details, but it's exciting." That was the Brandon I remembered. Always a little condescending about my lack of tech knowledge. I'd spent 30 years as a postal worker in Phoenix. Computers weren't my thing, but I understood people, and my son was lying to me. "What kind of hours are you working?" I pressed. "Long ones. Actually, I have a business meeting tonight, around 9. "I'm really sorry, Dad. I know you just got here, but this deal is important." A meeting at 9 at night. The bartender's warning. The men in suits. Pieces were clicking together in my mind, forming a picture I didn't want to see. "No problem," I said. "We've got plenty of time to catch up this week." Brandon relaxed a fraction. Yeah, we do. "I'm glad you came, Dad. I know things have been distant between us." Distant was an understatement. After the divorce from his mother 8 years ago, I'd retreated into myself. Brandon had sided with her, understandably. The rift had grown wider each year. I'd moved to Phoenix, he'd moved to Portland. We talked maybe 4 times a year, awkward phone calls that lasted 10 minutes. When he'd invited me to visit last month, I'd been shocked and hopeful. Now I was terrified. "I need to use the restroom," I said, sliding off the stool. My knees protested. 67 years old, and my body reminded me of that fact every morning. "Sure thing," Brandon said, already pulling out his phone to check messages. I walked toward the back of the bar, past pool tables and faded photographs of Portland from decades past. The men's room was at the end of a narrow hallway. I pushed inside, and the door swung shut behind me. The bathroom was small, grimy, smelled like industrial cleaner trying to mask decades of beer and poor aim. 1 urinal, 1 stall, 1 sink with a cracked mirror, and a window above the toilet, slightly ajar. I could hear voices outside, male voices, tense and low. I stepped into the stall and carefully climbed onto the toilet seat, my knee screaming in protest. Through the gap in the window, I had a clear view of the alley behind the bar. The bartender stood about 20 feet away, phone pressed to his ear. Even from this distance, I could see how scared he looked. Young guy, maybe 25, with that scar and nervous energy that suggested he'd seen things he wished he hadn't. I held my breath and listened. "I warned him," the bartender was saying. "I did my part. His father's here now. Maybe that'll change things. I don't know." A pause. "Tell your sister I'm done after this." I mean it, Sarah. I can't do this anymore. He hung up and paced the alley, running his hands through his hair. Then he walked quickly toward the street, disappearing around the corner. The pieces weren't just clicking now. They were slamming together. This bartender knew something specific about a threat to Brandon. He had a sister named Sarah who was somehow involved, and he'd warned me because he wanted out of whatever this was. I had to follow him, had to find out what Brandon was mixed up in, had to figure out how to save my son. I tried the window. It was old, painted over multiple times, but it slid upward with some effort. The opening was small, very small. I looked down at my body, soft around the middle from too many TV dinners and not enough exercise since retirement. This was going to hurt. Behind me, I heard the bathroom door handle rattle. Someone was trying to get in. My heart rate spiked. There was no time to think. I grabbed the window frame and started pulling myself through. My shoulders barely fit. I had to twist sideways, scraping my arms against the frame. The person outside rattled the handle again, harder this time. With a final shove, I squeezed through and dropped into the alley. The fall was maybe 5 feet, but I landed wrong. Pain exploded in my right knee, the one that had needed surgery 3 years ago. I bit down on my tongue to keep from crying out and tasted blood. The bartender was already half a block away, walking fast toward the industrial district south of downtown. I limped after him, trying to ignore the sharp stabs in my knee with each step. The evening air was cool, typical for Portland in October. The sun was setting, casting long shadows between the old brick buildings. This part of the city was quiet, mostly warehouses and storage facilities. Not many people around. Perfect place for something bad to happen. I kept my distance, staying close to the buildings, trying to be invisible. The bartender never looked back. He walked with purpose, like a man heading somewhere specific. After about 10 minutes, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Brandon. "Dad, where are you? You've been gone a while. Everything okay?" I couldn't answer. If I stopped to type, I'd lose the bartender. And something told me he was leading me to answers I desperately needed. The industrial district looked different in the fading light. During the day, these warehouses probably bustled with workers and delivery trucks. Now, they loomed like silent giants, windows dark, loading docks empty. My knee throbbed with each step, but adrenaline pushed me forward. The bartender turned left down a narrow street, lined with chain-link fences and graffiti-covered walls. I followed, keeping about 50 yards back. He still hadn't looked behind him, too focused on wherever he was going. My phone buzzed again. Brandon. I silenced it. After another 5 minutes, the bartender stopped in front of a building that might have been a warehouse once but now looked abandoned. Broken windows on the upper floors. Rusted metal door hanging slightly crooked on its hinges. He glanced around quickly, then slipped inside. I waited 30 seconds, then approached. The door opened with a screech that made me wince. Inside was darkness and the smell of mold and old concrete. I let my eyes adjust. Weak light filtered through the broken windows above, just enough to see I was in some kind of former loading area. Empty pallets stacked against walls, puddles of water on the cracked floor. Voices echoed from somewhere deeper in the building. I moved toward them carefully, testing each step to avoid making noise. The voices grew clearer. The bartender and a woman. I spotted them through a gap in some old machinery. They stood in what had probably been an office once, lit by a battery-powered lantern on a desk. The woman was young, maybe 30, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She'd been crying. Her mascara had run in dark streaks down her cheeks. "Jack, what are we going to do?" she said. Her voice cracked with desperation. "They took Danny. They actually took him." The bartender, Jack, put his hands on her shoulders. "I know, Sarah. I know. But we can't panic. If we panic, Danny dies." Sarah. The sister he'd mentioned on the phone. "I should never have gotten involved with them," Sarah said, starting to pace. "I thought I was just doing accounting work. Regular corporate accounting. By the time I realized what the money really was, where it was coming from, I was in too deep." "We're both in too deep," Jack said quietly. "But that guy's father showed up tonight. Maybe that changes things. How? How does some old man visiting his son change anything? Because the Castellanos weren't expecting it. Vincent doesn't like surprises. Maybe it throws off their timing, gives us a window. Castellanos. The name hit me like a punch. Even a guy like me, who'd lived his whole life on the straight and narrow, knew that name. The Castellano crime family operated throughout the Pacific Northwest. Drugs, gambling, loan sharking. And now, apparently whatever my son was caught up in. A window to do what? Sarah demanded. They have Danny. If we try anything, if we go to the police, they'll kill him. He's 17 years old, Jack. 17. This is our fault. We're supposed to protect him. And instead we got him kidnapped by mobsters. My hand slipped, bumping against a piece of metal machinery. The clang echoed through the empty warehouse. Jack and Sarah spun toward the sound. Jack reached behind his back and pulled out a small pistol. His hand shook as he pointed it in my direction. "Who's there?" he called out. "Come out now, or I start shooting." I had no choice. I stepped into the light, hands raised. "Don't shoot. I'm Cooper, Brandon's father, the man from the bar." Jack's eyes widened. "How did you? You followed me. You grabbed my arm and told me they were going to kill my son tonight," I said, keeping my voice steady despite my racing heart. What was I supposed to do? Go back to my hotel and watch TV? "That's my boy you're talking about." Sarah looked at Jack. "You warned him?" "I had to," Jack said, but he didn't lower the gun. "I couldn't just let it happen without giving him a chance." "And now he followed you here," Sarah said. "Which means if the Castellanos are watching you, which they probably are, they'll know he's involved. You just signed his death warrant too." The words hung in the air like smoke. I'd been so focused on following Jack, on finding answers, that I hadn't considered I might be walking into a trap, or leading danger right to these people who were trying to help. "Nobody followed me," I said, though I couldn't be sure. I climbed out the bathroom window. The men in suits at the bar, they didn't see me leave. "The men in suits," Jack repeated. "You noticed them?" "Hard not to. They were watching Brandon like hawks." Jack finally lowered the gun. He looked exhausted. "Sit down, Cooper. I guess we need to tell you everything." I sat on an old wooden crate. My knee was grateful for the rest. Sarah remained standing, arms crossed, looking like she wanted to run but had nowhere to go. "Your son isn't working for a legitimate startup," Jack began. "He's been writing software for the Castellano family. Sophisticated code that masks illegal transactions, makes their money laundering operation nearly untraceable. Cryptocurrency, offshore accounts, fake businesses. Brandon's good at what he does. Too good." The words hit me like physical blows. My son, my Brandon, working for organized crime. "He didn't know," Sarah added quickly, seeing my face. "Not at first. They recruited him 2 years ago through a front company, offered him an incredible salary, exciting work. By the time he figured out what he was really building, they had him trapped. They threatened him, said if he went to the police or stopped working, they'd kill him. And they would. They absolutely would." "So, he's been living like this for 2 years?" I asked. "Living in fear?" "Yeah," Jack said. "And it gets worse. 3 months ago, Brandon told them he was done, said he'd built what they wanted, and he wanted out. That's when Vincent Castellano, the head of the family, explained that Brandon would never be out. They own him. And to prove it, they gave Brandon one more job, an update to the software, something that would let them move even more money, faster. Brandon refused, so they're going to kill him," I said flatly. "Tonight," Sarah confirmed. "Vincent scheduled a meeting for 9 o'clock at a warehouse on the waterfront. Brandon thinks it's about negotiating his exit from the operation. He has no idea it's his execution." I checked my watch. 7:47. We had barely an hour. "Why are you two involved in this?" I asked. "Who are you to Brandon?" Jack and Sarah exchanged a look. "I tend bar at the Copper Mug because Vincent put me there," Jack said. "My job was to watch Brandon, report on who he talks to, where he goes, what he does. Vincent doesn't trust anyone. He wanted eyes on Brandon at all times. And I work as an accountant for one of their shell companies. Sarah said bitterly. I handle the paperwork for the money Brandon's software moves. We're both trapped, just like your son. But you warned me, I said to Jack. You risked yourself to give me a heads up. Because I'm sick of this, Jack said. His voice rose with emotion. I'm sick of watching people get hurt. Sick of being part of something evil. When I saw you tonight, Brandon's father showing up out of nowhere, I thought maybe this was the chance to finally do something right. We have to warn Brandon, I said, standing up despite the pain in my knee. We have to tell him not to go to that meeting. We can't, Sarah said. Vincent had Brandon's phone bugged. If we call him or text him and say anything suspicious, Vincent will know immediately and move up the timeline. Brandon will be dead within the hour, instead of at 9. Then we go get him in person, I said. Right now, we take him and run. Get out of Portland. Go to the real FBI. And what about Danny? Sarah's voice broke. Our little brother. The Castellanos grabbed him this afternoon as insurance. If Jack or I try anything, if we go to the police, if we warn anyone, Danny dies. They're holding him at an office above a restaurant they own. Vincent made it very clear. We keep our mouths shut, and Danny lives. We try to help Brandon, and they kill Danny in front of us. I sank back onto the crate. The situation was even worse than I'd imagined. Not just my son in danger, but these 3 young people trapped in a nightmare with no way out. There has to be something we can do, I said. I didn't fly across the country to watch my son die. Jack looked at me for a long moment. Something shifted in his expression. Maybe there is. It's risky, probably stupid, but it's better than doing nothing. I'm listening, I said. Jack's plan was simple, which made it only slightly less terrifying. He knew where they were holding Danny. A restaurant called Massimo's on the east side, upscale Italian place the Castellanos owned as a front. The office above the restaurant was where Vincent conducted business he didn't want traced. Jack had been there before, running errands for the family. He knew the layout. The plan was to split up. Jack and I would try to grab Danny while Sarah went to find Brandon and get him somewhere safe before 9 o'clock. If we could rescue Danny, we'd have leverage. We could all go to the FBI together, tell them everything, get into witness protection or whatever they did for people in situations like this. It was full of holes. 1,000 things could go wrong. But doing nothing meant watching Brandon die, and I wasn't about to let that happen. We left the warehouse separately. Sarah took a bus toward downtown where Brandon worked late most nights. Jack and I drove together in his beat-up Honda Civic, heading east through Portland's darkening streets. You don't have to do this, Jack said as he drove. This isn't your fight. You could go back to your hotel, get on a plane tomorrow, pretend you never heard any of this. That's my son they're planning to murder, I said. And you're helping me, even though it puts you and your family at even more risk. So yeah, I have to do this. Jack nodded. He gripped the steering wheel tight, knuckles white. I'm scared, he admitted. I've been scared for 2 years. Every day, wondering if this is the day Vincent decides I know too much and gets rid of me. It's no way to live. How old are you? I asked. 26. Sarah's 31. Danny just turned 17 last month. Just kids. All of them. And the Castellanos had pulled them into this nightmare. After tonight, one way or another, it's over, I said. I wasn't sure if I believed it, but Jack seemed to need to hear it. Massimo sat on a corner lot, all brick facade and fancy awnings. Valet parking out front. Through the windows, I could see well-dressed people eating expensive meals, completely unaware that upstairs, a teenager was being held captive by mobsters. Jack parked 2 blocks away. There's a delivery entrance in the alley behind the restaurant, he explained. The kitchen staff use it for loading supplies. If we time it right, we can slip in during the dinner rush when everyone's busy. We walked to the alley, trying to look casual. My knee still hurt, but the adrenaline helped. The delivery entrance was exactly where Jack said it would be. The door was propped open with a cinder block, probably for ventilation. We could hear shouting in Italian from inside, chefs yelling orders, the clang of pots and pans. Stay close, Jack whispered. We slipped inside. The kitchen was chaos. White-coated chefs worked at multiple stations, flames leaping from pans, steam rising from boiling pots. Nobody even glanced at us as we moved along the wall toward a staircase at the back. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. This was insane. I was a retired postal worker from Phoenix. I sorted mail and delivered packages for 30 years. I'd never done anything remotely like this, but Brandon needed me. We climbed the stairs, which were narrow and poorly lit. At the top was a hallway with 3 doors. Jack pointed to the one at the end. 2 men stood outside it. Guards, big guys in dark suits, the kind of men who hurt people for a living. "Now what?" I whispered. "We need a distraction," Jack said. "Something to get them away from that door." An idea formed in my mind. Probably a terrible idea, but it was all I had. "Wait here," I told Jack. Before he could protest, I stepped into the hallway and started stumbling toward the guards, singing an old country song off-key. I made my voice loud and slurred, the perfect drunk old man who'd wandered into the wrong place. "Hey there, fellas," I called out, barely able to keep a straight face. "Where's the bathroom? This is the bathroom, right? I gotta pee something fierce." The guards looked at each other, then at me. One of them, a guy with a shaved head and a neck tattoo, stepped forward. "Wrong floor, old man. Turn around and get out." "But I really gotta go," I insisted, stumbling closer. "Can't hold it much longer. You don't want me to have an accident, do you?" Neck tattoo grabbed my arm roughly. I said, "Get out." Now, the second guard, shorter but twice as wide, stayed by the door. That was the problem. We needed both of them away from there. I heard a sound behind the first guard, a muffled thump. Jack had made his move, trying to get past while they were focused on me. But it hadn't worked. The second guard opened the door and looked inside. "We got a problem," he called out. Everything happened fast after that. The guard holding me shoved me against the wall. My head bounced off the plaster, and stars exploded across my vision. Through the open door, I saw Jack being dragged out by a third guard I hadn't known was in there. Jack's lip was split, blood running down his chin, and behind them, tied to a chair in the middle of the office, was a teenage boy with fear in his eyes. "Danny." "Well, well," said a new voice. A man emerged from the office, dressed in a suit that probably cost more than my car. He was maybe 50, with silver hair and cold eyes that assessed me like I was a piece of meat. Jack brought a friend. How thoughtful. The guards grabbed both of us and hauled us into the office. They threw us into chairs and zip-tied our hands behind our backs. The plastic cut into my wrists. The man in the expensive suit walked slowly around us. "I'm Vincent Castellano. You're probably Cooper, Brandon's father. Jack here told you about tonight's plans, didn't he? And you thought you'd play hero, save the day. Very touching, very stupid. Let these kids go," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. "They're not part of whatever beef you have." Vincent laughed. It was a terrible sound, empty of humor. They became part of it when they tried to interfere. Just like you did. He pulled out his phone and made a call. "Change of plans. Bring Brandon to Massimo's instead of the warehouse." "Yes, now. Tell him there's been a complication with the software. He'll come." He hung up and smiled at me. "Your son will be here in about 20 minutes. Now I'll have everyone in one place. Much more efficient this way. You understand efficiency, don't you, Cooper? You worked for the post office. All about efficiency." My blood ran cold. I'd tried to save everyone, and instead I'd delivered Brandon directly into the hands of his killers. I'd made everything worse. Vincent checked his watch. 8:23. Perfect timing. We'll have this wrapped up before the dinner rush ends. The sounds from the kitchen cover up so much. He looked at his guards. "Keep them here. Keep them quiet. If any of them make noise, shoot Danny first. Let them watch." The guards nodded. Vincent straightened his tie and walked out, leaving us alone with 3 armed men in our failure. The office fell into tense silence after Vincent left. The guards stood at strategic positions, guns visible under their jackets, watching us like we were animals that might bolt at any second. Danny whimpered quietly in his chair. He was just a kid, lanky and scared, with the same eyes as his older siblings. Jack caught my gaze and mouthed, "I'm sorry." I shook my head slightly. This wasn't his fault. It was mine. I should have thought it through better. planned more carefully. Instead, I'd charged in like some action movie hero, and now Brandon was walking into a death trap because of me. Time crawled. My wrists ached where the zip ties cut into them. My knee throbbed, but none of that physical pain compared to the crushing weight of knowing I'd failed my son. After 2 years of distance, of regret, of wishing I'd been a better father, I'd finally had a chance to save him, and I'd blown it spectacularly. The door burst open. Sarah stumbled in, pushed by another guard. Her eyes went wide when she saw us. "Jack? Danny? What's going on?" "They were caught trying to play hero," one of the guards said. "Vincent wants you here too. Says everyone involved needs to be present." Sarah looked at me with something between pity and anger. "You couldn't just walk away," she said quietly. "You had to try to save everyone. Now we're all going to die." Before I could respond, Vincent returned. He was on his phone again, speaking calmly. "Yes, ground floor entrance. My men will meet you there. Just you, Brandon. If you bring anyone else, the deal is off." He hung up and pocketed his phone. "Your son is pulling into the parking lot right now, Cooper. In about 60 seconds, he'll walk through that door, and this will all be over." "Why?" I asked. "Why kill him? He built you what you wanted. Why not just let him walk away?" Vincent looked at me like I'd asked why water was wet. "Because he knows too much. Because he threatened to go to the FBI. Because he's a liability. In my business, Cooper, liabilities get eliminated. It's nothing personal. It's just how things work." "And us?" Sarah asked, her voice hollow. "All of you were useful once," Vincent said. "Jack watched Brandon for me. Sarah processed the transactions. Even you, Cooper, served a purpose by showing me there were loose ends I needed to tie up. But now, you're all witnesses. You all know too much. So yes, Sarah, you're all going to have an unfortunate accident. A tragic family drama. Unstable father flies in to visit son. Discovers son is involved in crime. Loses his mind. Kills several people. Kills himself. The police will find it messy but believable." The door opened. Brandon walked in, looking confused and worried. His eyes found me first, widened in shock. "Dad, what are you doing here? What's going on?" Then he saw Jack and Sarah and Danny, all tied up. Saw the guards. Saw Vincent. The color drained from his face as understanding hit him like a freight train. "No," Brandon whispered. "No, this wasn't supposed to happen yet. You said 9 o'clock. You said we had time to negotiate." "I lied," Vincent said simply. "Close the door, Brandon." Brandon tried to run. He spun toward the exit, but the guards were faster. They grabbed him, dragged him back into the room. Brandon fought them, actually fought them, and I felt a surge of pride mixed with terror. My son wasn't going down without a fight. They zip-tied Brandon's hands and shoved him into a chair next to mine. His shoulder pressed against mine, and I could feel him shaking. "I'm sorry," I said to him. "I'm so sorry, son. I was trying to help." Brandon looked at me, and I saw something terrible in his eyes. Betrayal. "You did this? You brought them here?" "I didn't know," I said desperately. "I was trying to save you. The bartender warned me, and I thought if I could rescue Danny, we could all get away." "The bartender," Brandon repeated, looking at Jack, then back at me. "You trusted a stranger? You got involved in something you don't understand, and now we're all dead because of it?" His words cut deeper than any knife. He was right. I'd been arrogant and stupid, thinking I could fix this when I had no idea what I was really dealing with. "Your father thought he was being heroic," Vincent said, clearly enjoying Brandon's pain. "It's almost touching. Dysfunctional family finally comes together, just in time to die together. There's poetry in that." "Please," Brandon said, and hearing my son beg broke something inside me. "Please, just let my dad go. He's not part of this. Kill me if you have to, but let him go. He didn't do anything wrong." "On the contrary," Vincent said. "He did everything wrong. But don't worry. You'll all be together soon enough." A woman's voice came from the doorway. "Actually, Vincent, I think we need to talk." Everyone turned. A woman in FBI tactical gear stood there, holding a badge. She was maybe 40, fit, with her dark hair pulled back severely. My heart leaped. The FBI. We were saved. Then Vincent smiled. Special Agent Ruth Palmer. Right on time. The woman, Palmer, walked into the room and holstered her weapon. You were supposed to wait until after 9, Vincent. I specifically said 9 o'clock at the warehouse. Now I have to clean up your mess here instead. My hope died as quickly as it had sparked. This FBI agent wasn't here to rescue us. She was working with Vincent. Plans changed, Vincent said with a shrug. The father showed up and complicated things. I adapted. You always were impulsive, Palmer said, walking around the room examining each of us like we were specimens. That's going to be your downfall eventually. My downfall? Vincent laughed. I'm not the one who's been skimming millions off the top of this operation for the past 2 years. Palmer stopped moving. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. What did you say? You thought I didn't notice? Vincent's smile was gone now. You thought I didn't know you were using Brandon's software to steal from me, siphoning money into your own offshore accounts while pretending to be my partner? I know everything, Ruth. I always know everything. Vincent, Palmer said carefully, whatever you think you know, you're wrong. We're partners. We split everything 50-50, just like we agreed. We split what you choose to tell me about, Vincent said. But I had my accountant do some digging, found some very interesting discrepancies, about $40 million worth of discrepancies. Sarah made a small sound. The discrepancies I flagged 6 months ago, the ones you told me not to mention to Vincent. Palmer's face hardened. Sarah, shut up. You told me it was just an accounting error, Sarah continued, her voice gaining strength. You told me you'd fix it, but you were stealing from the Castellanos the whole time, weren't you? Using me to cover your tracks. I said shut up, Palmer snapped. But Vincent was laughing now, a genuine sound of amusement. This is beautiful. I brought you here to eliminate these witnesses for me, Ruth, but I think instead I'll eliminate you. You're the liability now. You're the one who knows too much. Palmer's hand went to her weapon, but Vincent had 3 armed guards in the room, and she had to know she couldn't take them all. The tension was electric, everyone frozen, waiting to see who would move first. Palmer drew her gun in one smooth motion. But instead of pointing it at the guards, she pointed it at Vincent and fired. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. Vincent staggered backward, a bloom of red spreading across his white shirt. He looked down at the wound, then up at Palmer, genuine surprise on his face. You killed me, he said, as if he couldn't quite believe it. Yes, Palmer said. I did. Vincent collapsed. Blood pooled beneath him, spreading across the hardwood floor. His eyes stayed open, staring at nothing. Palmer turned her gun toward us. Here's the new plan, she said calmly, as if she hadn't just murdered a man in cold blood. All of you die. Vincent dies. The guards die. I'm the only witness, the FBI agent who tried to stop a mob execution but arrived too late. I'll be a hero, and I'll have $40 million waiting for me in the Cayman Islands. You can't kill all of us, Brandon said, his voice stronger than I expected. Someone will know. Someone will figure it out. Who? Palmer asked. Vincent's people? They scatter the moment word gets out he's dead. His empire crumbles overnight. The FBI? They'll believe whatever I tell them. I'm a decorated agent. I've put dozens of criminals away. My word is gold. And you? She gestured at us with her gun. You're nobodies. Criminals. Money launderers. When you all turn up dead, the official story will be that you turned on each other. It happens all the time in organized crime. She was right, and we all knew it. Palmer had thought of everything. She'd orchestrated this whole scenario to give herself a clean exit with millions of dollars and no witnesses. One of the guards, the one with the neck tattoo, looked uncomfortable. Agent Palmer, we didn't sign up for this. We work security for Vincent, not for you. Palmer shot him without hesitation. The guard crumpled. The other 2 guards reached for their weapons, but Palmer was faster, better trained. 2 more shots. Both guards went down. Now it was just Palmer, standing in a room full of tied-up prisoners and dead bodies, holding a gun, and absolutely no reason not to use it. She pointed the weapon at Brandon's head. The software genius dies first. Then the rest of you, one by one. Nothing personal, just business. Her finger tightened on the trigger. I screamed my son's name, and time seemed to slow to a crawl. In that frozen moment, with Palmer's finger tightening on the trigger and my son's life measured in fractions of a second, something inside me snapped. Not fear, not panic, something colder, clearer. I'd spent my whole life being cautious, playing it safe, avoiding conflict. And where had it gotten me? Divorced, distant from my son, alone. If I was going to die in this room, I was going to die fighting for the only thing that had ever really mattered. My son. Wait, I said loud and sharp. Palmer's finger paused. She looked at me, irritated. You have something to say, old man. Make it quick. Brandon's telling the truth, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady even though my heart was trying to break through my ribs. There's a kill switch in the software. If he doesn't enter a code every 72 hours, everything erases, and copies get sent automatically to 3 different news outlets: the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Portland Tribune. Full documentation of every transaction, every account, every illegal operation. You kill him, you lose everything. Palmer studied my face. You're lying. I'm not, Brandon said, picking up on my improvisation immediately. Thank God for that. He's not. I built it in as insurance 6 months ago, after I realized what was really going on. I wanted a way out. The kill switch is my leverage. Palmer's jaw clenched. Show me. My laptop's in my car downstairs, Brandon said. I can prove it. But you have to take me down there. It's biometric locked. My fingerprint and my face. Nobody else can access it. I could see Palmer thinking, weighing the risk. She couldn't afford to lose the $40 million. But she also couldn't afford to let Brandon out of her sight where he might escape or signal for help. Fine, she said finally. 2 of you. She pointed at the dead guards. Drag them into the bathroom. Make it look like they were killed in a robbery gone wrong. Then she realized all the guards were dead. She'd shot them herself. She cursed under her breath, walked to the nearest guard's body, and cut Brandon's zip ties with a knife from the dead man's belt. You try anything. Your father dies first. Then the others. Understand? Brandon nodded. He stood slowly, rubbing his wrists where the plastic had dug in. He looked at me, and I tried to communicate everything I couldn't say out loud. That I loved him, that I was proud of him, that I was sorry for every year I'd wasted being afraid to really be his father. Palmer kept her gun trained on Brandon as they left. The door closed behind them, and the room fell into awful silence. Just me, Jack, Sarah, and Danny, all tied up, and 3 dead guards. And Vincent's body, blood still spreading across the floor. What do we do? Sarah whispered. We get out of these zip ties, I said. Jack, can you reach the knife on that guard's belt? The one Palmer used? Jack's chair was closest to the bodies. He started rocking back and forth, trying to tip his chair to get closer. It took 3 tries, but he managed to fall sideways. He grunted in pain as he hit the floor, then started wriggling toward the nearest body. While Jack worked on that, I focused on my own bonds. Zip ties are strong, but they're not indestructible. I'd seen a video once on the internet, back when I was trying to learn useful skills for retirement. You could break them if you raised your arms fast and hard above your head, bringing them down in one sharp motion against your stomach. The key was building up enough force. I took a deep breath and tried it. Pain shot through my shoulders. The tie didn't break. I tried again. Nothing. My arms weren't strong enough anymore. 67 years old. Soft from too much sitting, too little exercise. I couldn't do it. Got it, Jack said. He'd managed to wiggle close enough to grab the knife in his teeth. Now he was sawing at his own zip ties, an awkward process that involved a lot of contorting. But after about 2 minutes, his hands came free. He quickly cut Sarah and Danny loose, then came to me. You okay? He asked as he sawed through my bonds. Fine, I lied. My shoulders screamed from the attempt to break free. We need to get out of here before Palmer comes back. What about Brandon? Danny asked. His voice was high and scared. breaking like he hadn't quite finished puberty yet. We can't leave him with her. Brandon's smart, I said. He's buying us time, but we need to use it. There's a fire escape, Sarah said, pointing to the window. It leads down to the alley. We could get out that way, call the real police. We moved toward the window, but as Jack started to open it, we heard something from the hallway. Footsteps, multiple sets, running. She's coming back, Sarah said, panic rising in her voice. Bathroom, Jack said. Now. We crowded into the small bathroom attached to the office. Jack pulled the door mostly closed, leaving just a crack to see through. My heart hammered. If Palmer checked the bathroom, we were done for. The office door burst open. Brandon stumbled in, followed by Palmer. She looked furious. You lied, she snarled. There is no kill switch. I watched you access your laptop. Nothing. No automated emails. No evidence packages. You played me. I had to try, Brandon said. He looked terrified but also defiant. What else was I supposed to do? Let you kill everyone? Palmer raised her gun. This was it. She was going to shoot him. The bathroom door exploded outward as Jack threw himself at Palmer. They crashed into the desk, the gun skittering across the floor. Sarah lunged for it, but Palmer recovered faster than expected. She kicked Sarah in the stomach, sending her sprawling. Danny ran at Palmer, screaming. She backhanded him across the face. The sound was sickening. Danny dropped. I saw the gun on the floor, maybe 6 feet away. I ran for it, my bad knee protesting every step. Palmer saw me moving, threw herself forward. We collided. I weighed more, but she was trained, knew how to fight. She used my momentum against me, flipping me over her hip. I crashed into the wall, stars exploding across my vision. Brandon grabbed the metal paperweight from Vincent's desk and swung it at Palmer's head. It connected with a wet thunk. Palmer staggered but didn't go down. She grabbed Brandon's arm and twisted. I heard something snap. Brandon screamed. Jack had recovered. He dove at Palmer from behind, wrapping his arms around her, trying to restrain her. She threw her head back, connecting with his nose. Blood sprayed, but Jack held on. The gun, he shouted. Someone get the gun. Sarah was closest. She scrambled forward, grabbed it, raised it with shaking hands. Stop, she yelled. Everyone stop or I'll shoot. Palmer laughed, even with Jack clinging to her back. You won't shoot. You don't have it in you. You're an accountant, not a killer. Try me, Sarah said. Her hands steadied. I've lost everything because of you. My freedom, my future. You took my baby brother. You were going to kill us all. Give me one reason not to pull this trigger. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then we heard it. Sirens. Lots of them. Getting closer. Palmer's face went white. No, that's impossible. Nobody called the police. I did, said a new voice from the doorway. Well, not the police exactly. The FBI. The real FBI. A man stood there, maybe 40, with a badge on his belt and blood spreading across his shirt from a wound in his side. He leaned heavily against the doorframe. Detective Frank Morris. Internal Affairs. I've been investigating Agent Palmer for 8 months. Been embedded in her operation, pretending to be one of her corrupt cops. I've been recording everything. He held up his phone weakly. Every word. Every murder. All of it. Palmer's face twisted with rage. She somehow threw Jack off her back and lunged for Frank. Sarah fired. The shot went wide, hitting the wall. Palmer was almost to Frank, to his phone, to the evidence that would destroy her. I grabbed Vincent's chair and swung it with everything I had left. It caught Palmer in the side, knocked her off balance. She stumbled into the desk. Jack tackled her again. This time, he held on, even when she elbowed him in the ribs, even when she tried to gouge his eyes. He just held on, wrapping his legs around her, immobilizing her. Brandon, cradling his injured arm, grabbed his belt and used it to tie Palmer's hands behind her back. It wasn't perfect, but it held. The sirens were right outside now. We could hear shouting, doors slamming, heavy boots on the stairs. Frank slid down the wall, sitting hard on the floor. About time, he muttered. Backup was supposed to be here 20 minutes ago. The office filled with FBI agents in tactical gear, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Real agents this time, not corrupt ones like Palmer. They saw the scene. Dead bodies everywhere. Palmer tied up. All of us bloody and beaten. "Secure the area," someone shouted. "We need medical." Multiple wounded. An agent approached Frank. "Detective Morris, we got your signal. What the hell happened here?" "Everything happened," Frank said. He looked at me. "This man and his son, they saved my investigation. Saved my life. Palmer was about to destroy all the evidence and kill everyone. They stopped her." Another agent pulled Palmer to her feet. She was still struggling, still trying to fight even though she'd lost. "You can't prove anything," she spat. "It's my word against theirs. I'm FBI. They're criminals." Frank held up his phone. "I've got 3 hours of recordings, Ruth, including you murdering Vincent Castellano in cold blood, including you admitting to stealing $40 million, including you trying to kill 6 witnesses. You're done." Palmer's face finally showed fear. Real, genuine fear. The same fear she'd inflicted on so many others. More agents poured in. Paramedics arrived. They started treating wounds, asking questions, documenting the scene. Someone put a blanket around my shoulders even though I wasn't cold. Shock, probably. My hands were shaking. Brandon sat next to me, his arm being examined by a paramedic. "Dad," he said quietly, "what you did tonight, climbing out that window, following Jack, trying to rescue Danny, it was insane. Stupid. Could have gotten us all killed." "I know," I said, "but you did it anyway. You came for me. After 2 years of barely talking, you risked everything to save me. You're my son," I said. "Of course I came for you." Brandon's eyes filled with tears. "I thought you didn't care anymore. After the divorce, after I took Mom's side, after I pushed you away, I thought you'd given up on me." "Never," I said. My own voice broke. "Not for 1 second. I gave you space because I thought that's what you needed. But I never stopped caring. I never stopped being your father." We sat there together, bloody and beaten, while FBI agents swarmed around us and Palmer was led away in handcuffs. But in that moment, for the first time in years, I felt like I'd done something right. Frank was being loaded onto a stretcher. He looked bad, needed surgery soon. But before they took him away, he called out to me. "Cooper, visit me in the hospital. We need to talk. Your son's testimony is going to be crucial to bringing down Palmer's entire network. But I'll make sure he's protected. You both will be. You have my word." I nodded. "We'll be there." The stretcher disappeared down the hall. An agent approached us, introduced herself as Agent Torres, Frank's partner. "We'll need full statements from all of you, but that can wait until you've been treated. Right now, let's get you to the hospital." As they helped Brandon and me out of that blood-soaked office, I saw Jack and Sarah and Danny being led out separately, also wrapped in blankets, also heading for medical treatment. Our eyes met. Jack nodded at me, a gesture of respect, of gratitude. We'd all survived this nightmare together. Outside, the parking lot was full of flashing lights. Police cars, FBI vehicles, ambulances, people in uniforms everywhere. The restaurant below was being evacuated. Confused diners being questioned, staff being interviewed. I sat in the back of an ambulance while a paramedic checked my injuries. Bruised ribs, possibly a concussion. My knee definitely needed x-rays. Nothing life-threatening, nothing that wouldn't heal. Brandon sat next to me in the ambulance. His arm was broken, would need a cast, but he was alive. We were both alive. "What happens now?" he asked. "I don't know," I admitted, "but we'll figure it out. Together." He leaned his head against my shoulder, something he hadn't done since he was a little boy. "I'm glad you came to visit, Dad, even if it almost got us killed." "Me too, son," I said. "Me too." The ambulance pulled away from Massimo's sirens wailing, carrying us toward the hospital and whatever came next. But in that moment, with my son safe beside me, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. The emergency room was chaos. Doctors and nurses rushed between curtained areas, dealing with the aftermath of what the news was already calling the Castellano massacre. Brandon and I were separated for treatment. I tried to argue, tried to stay with him, but the medical staff insisted. His broken arm needed immediate attention, possibly surgery. My injuries could wait, so I sat alone in a curtained cubicle while a young doctor poked at my ribs and shone lights in my eyes. She asked questions I barely heard, gave me answers I didn't remember. All I could think about was Brandon, whether he was okay, whether the nightmare was really over. It wasn't. Agent Torres found me about an hour later. Her face was grim. "Cooper, we have a problem." My stomach dropped. What kind of problem? Palmer escaped. The words didn't make sense at first. That's impossible. I saw your agents take her away in handcuffs. One of the officers transporting her to the federal building was on her payroll, Torres said. We didn't know. He released her 3 blocks from here. By the time we realized what happened, she was gone. She knows where we are, I said. The hospital. She knows we're here. We've got agents stationed throughout the building, Torres said quickly. You're protected, but I need you to tell me everything you know about Palmer's operation. Every detail Brandon mentioned. Anything Jack or Sarah said. We need to find her before she disappears completely. What about Frank? I asked. Is he okay? Out of surgery. Critical, but stable. The bullet missed his heart by 2 inches. Torres pulled out a notepad. Now, start from the beginning. When did you first learn about the Castellanos? I told her everything. The bartender grabbing my wrist, following Jack to the warehouse, the rescue attempt at Massimo's, Vincent's murder, Palmer's confession about the stolen $40 million. Torres scribbled notes furiously, occasionally stopping me to ask for clarification. Brandon's software, she said. Did Palmer take his laptop? I hadn't thought about that. I don't know. Everything happened so fast. If she has the laptop, she has access to the offshore accounts. She could liquidate everything and vanish. Torres stood. Stay here. Don't leave this room. I'm posting 2 agents outside your door. She left in a hurry. I sat alone again, listening to the sounds of the emergency room. Somewhere nearby, someone was crying. Somewhere else, someone laughed. Life going on like normal, while my world was still spinning. A nurse came to take me for x-rays. 2 FBI agents escorted us through the hallways, constantly scanning for threats. The hospital felt different now. Every doctor could be Palmer in disguise. Every visitor could be one of her corrupt cops. Paranoia crept over me like a cold fog. The x-rays showed no fractures in my knee, just severe bruising and inflammation. Good news, relatively speaking. They gave me painkillers and told me to follow up with an orthopedist in a week. When I returned to my cubicle, Brandon was waiting. His arm was in a cast from wrist to elbow. He looked exhausted, shell-shocked, but alive. We hugged carefully, mindful of his broken arm and my bruised ribs. They told me Palmer got away, he said. Yeah, she's coming for us, isn't she? To finish what she started. Torres says we're protected. Torres didn't know one of her own people was dirty, Brandon pointed out. How many others are on Palmer's payroll? How many of these agents can we actually trust? He was right. We'd escaped Palmer once, but she was FBI, trained in tactics and strategy. She had resources, connections, and a desperate need to eliminate everyone who could testify against her. We can't just sit here and wait for her to find us, I said. What choice do we have? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. Cooper, it's Jack. Sarah, Danny and I are in room 412. We need to talk. Come alone. I showed Brandon the text. It could be a trap, he said. Or it could be the only people in this city who know what we're going through. I stood, pain shooting through my knee. I'm going. You stay here with the agents. Not a chance, Brandon said. We stick together now. No more splitting up. We slipped past the agents outside my cubicle while they were distracted by a patient having a seizure down the hall. I felt guilty about it, but not guilty enough to stop. The hospital was a maze of corridors and elevators. We found room 412 on the 4th floor, a private room at the end of a quiet hallway. I knocked softly. Jack opened the door, checking the hallway before letting us in. Sarah and Danny were there. Danny's face bruised from Palmer's backhand. Sarah's arm in a sling. "You shouldn't have come," Jack said. "The FBI is looking for you." "They can keep looking," I said. "What's going on?" "Frank woke up about 20 minutes ago," Sarah said. "Before Torres left his room, he told her something. Palmer didn't just escape. She's coming back here. Tonight. She knows where his room is. Knows he has the recordings that will destroy her. She's going to kill him and destroy the evidence. Then come for the rest of us." "Torres knows this?" Brandon asked. "Yeah. She's setting a trap, using Frank as bait to draw Palmer out." Jack's face was pale. "But Frank's barely conscious. Cooper. He almost died today. And they're using him as bait." "He volunteered," Sarah said quietly. "Insisted on it. Said catching Palmer was worth the risk." "What about us?" I asked. "What are we supposed to do?" "Torres wants us out of the hospital," Jack said. "There's a safe house 20 minutes from here. FBI agents will take us there, keep us secure until Palmer is captured or killed." "You trust them?" Brandon asked. "After one of them released Palmer?" "No," Jack admitted. "I don't trust anyone except the people in this room. We went through hell together. We saved each other. That's the only reason I'm telling you this." Danny spoke for the first time, his voice small. "I just want to go home. I want this to be over." "It will be," Sarah said, putting her good arm around her little brother. Soon, my phone buzzed again. "Torres, where are you? The agents say you left your room." I ignored it. "When are they moving us to the safe house?" 10 minutes, Jack said. 2 unmarked cars. 4 agents total. They're coordinating with hospital security now." "And Frank?" I asked. "Stays here with Torres and a tactical team. Palmer makes her move. They take her down." It sounded reasonable, professional, exactly what you'd expect from a competent FBI operation. But something nagged at me, a feeling in my gut that I couldn't quite name. "Brandon," I said, "when Palmer took you downstairs to check your laptop, what happened?" "Exactly?" Brandon frowned. "We went to my car. She made me unlock the laptop and show her there was no kill switch. When I couldn't prove it existed, she knew I was bluffing. Then she dragged me back upstairs." "Did she take the laptop?" "No. She left it in my car. Said it was useless without me alive to access the offshore accounts." "So the laptop's still in your car? In the parking lot at Massimo's?" "Should be, unless someone stole it." The nagging feeling crystallized into certainty. "She's not coming back for Frank. She's going back to Massimo's for your laptop. She needs those account codes, those passwords. Without them, she can't access the $40 million. Frank's recordings prove she's corrupt, but the money is still hidden. She's going to grab the laptop, liquidate the accounts, and disappear. The hospital is a diversion." Jack stared at me. "You really think so?" "I think Palmer is smart. Too smart to walk into an obvious trap. Torres is probably right about Palmer coming back tonight, but not here. She's going back to where this started." "Then we need to tell Torres," Sarah said. "No," Brandon said suddenly. "Dad's right. Think about it. If we tell Torres and she's wrong, Palmer escapes with the laptop while the FBI is guarding a hospital. But if Dad's right, and we go to Massimo's ourselves..." "We're not trained agents," Jack said. "We're not equipped for this. Neither was my dad when he climbed out that bathroom window," Brandon said. "Neither were you when you warned him at the bar. We've been making it up as we go this whole time." "This is insane," Sarah said, but I could see her considering it. "My car's in the parking lot here," Jack said slowly. "We could be at Massimo's in 15 minutes if traffic's light." "And then what?" Sarah demanded. "We confront Palmer ourselves? She's armed, trained, and desperate." "We don't confront her," I said. "We watch. If she shows up, we call Torres with proof of where she really is. The FBI intercepts her there instead of wasting time at the hospital." It was thin, really thin, but it was something other than sitting around waiting to be shuffled from one FBI safe house to another, hoping Palmer didn't find us first. "I'm in," Brandon said. "Me too," Jack said. "Danny? Sarah?" Danny nodded. "Anything's better than being bait." Sarah closed her eyes, took a deep breath. "This is the dumbest thing I've ever agreed to. Let's go." We left the room together. 5 injured people held together by shared trauma and desperation. We took the stairs to avoid the elevators and security cameras, slipped out a side entrance that hospital staff used for smoke breaks. Jack's Honda was still in the lot, where he'd left it hours ago. Felt like a lifetime ago. We piled in, Jack driving, me in the passenger seat, Brandon, Sarah, and Danny crammed in the back. My phone was blowing up with calls from Torres now. I turned it off. We'd deal with the FBI's anger later, if we survived tonight. Jack drove fast through Portland streets, running yellow lights, taking turns hard enough to make the tires squeal. The city looked different in the darkness, threatening, like every shadow could hide danger. There, Brandon said, as Massimo's came into view. The restaurant was dark, closed by police order after the massacre. Crime scene tape crossed the doors. Police cars were parked outside, officers guarding the scene. "How do we get in?" Sarah asked. "We don't," I said. "We watch from across the street. If Palmer shows, we call Torres immediately." Jack parked 2 blocks away. We walked back slowly, staying in the shadows. Found a position behind a dumpster across from Massimo's that gave us a view of the front entrance and the alley. And we waited. 10 minutes passed. 20. My knee throbbed. Brandon shifted constantly, unable to get comfortable with his broken arm. Jack kept checking his phone, reading updates from news sites about the Castellano investigation. "Maybe you were wrong," Sarah whispered. "Maybe she really is going after Frank." Then we saw it. A figure moving down the alley toward Massimo's back entrance. Moving carefully, checking surroundings, definitely trying to avoid being seen. "That's her," Brandon breathed. Palmer approached the crime scene tape, ducked under it, and disappeared into the building through a door the police had left unsecured. "Call Torres," Jack said. "Now." I pulled out my phone, turned it back on. It immediately buzzed with a dozen missed call notifications. I dialed Torres's number. She answered on the first ring. "Cooper, where the hell are you?" "Massimo's," I said. "Palmer just entered the building. She's going for Brandon's laptop." There was a pause. "You're sure?" "I'm watching her right now. Stay where you are. Don't engage. We're 10 minutes out." The line went dead. We waited, watching the dark building. Minutes crawled by. What was taking Palmer so long? How hard was it to grab a laptop from a car? Then we heard it. Breaking glass. A crash from inside. Shouting. The officers guarding the front entrance ran toward the noise, drawing their weapons. Gunfire erupted. Multiple shots, coming from inside the restaurant. The officers took cover, radioed for backup. "What's happening?" Danny asked, terrified. More gunfire. Then Palmer burst from the front entrance, laptop tucked under her arm, firing behind her as she ran. One of the officers went down. The other tried to return fire, but Palmer was faster, better. She sprinted across the street, directly toward us. We pressed back against the dumpster, holding our breath. Palmer ran past, so close I could have reached out and touched her. Her face was cut, bleeding. Her FBI jacket was torn. But she had the laptop. She disappeared around the corner. The officer who was still standing pursued, calling for backup, but Palmer had too much of a head start. We heard the screech of tires, an engine revving. She was gone. Torres arrived 5 minutes later, with a convoy of FBI vehicles. She found us still huddled behind the dumpster, shaking from adrenaline and fear. "You were supposed to stay put," she said, but there was no real anger in her voice, just exhaustion. "Palmer got the laptop," I said. "She shot a police officer." "He'll live," Torres said. "Body armor saved him. But you're right about Palmer getting away." Again, she looked at the 5 of us. "You should all be dead right now. You know that, right? Coming here instead of going to the safe house was beyond stupid." "But we were right," Brandon said, "about where she'd go." "You were lucky," Torres corrected. "If Palmer had seen you, you'd all be corpses right now." She pulled out her phone, made several calls coordinating the search for Palmer. Then she turned back to us. "Get in the vehicles. The safe house is still the plan. Only this time, you're coming whether you like it or not." We didn't argue. We'd used up all our luck for one night. The safe house was a nondescript apartment in a suburban neighborhood, Clean, furnished like a hotel room, completely forgettable. Torres posted agents at the door and told us to get some rest, as if any of us could sleep after everything that had happened. We sat together in the living room, too wired to relax. Brandon kept staring at his cast. Jack paced. Sarah held Danny, who'd finally started crying, all the fear and trauma of the day pouring out of him in broken sobs. "It's not over," Brandon said quietly. "Palmer has my laptop now. She can access the accounts, liquidate everything, and disappear to some country without extradition. We'll never see her again. And she'll spend the rest of her life looking over her shoulder," I said, knowing that somewhere out there, Frank has recordings that prove her crimes, knowing that 6 witnesses can testify against her. That's not freedom. That's a different kind of prison. "You really think she won't come back for us?" Sarah asked. "I think she's smart enough to know she's lost," I said. "The recordings can't be erased. The evidence can't be buried. She can run, but she can't win. Not anymore." Torres came back an hour later with news. "We've frozen all the accounts Brandon's software was connected to. Palmer can't access the money anymore. When she tries to liquidate, the transfers will be blocked and we'll know her location." "So it's a trap," Jack said. "Again," Torres agreed. "Only this time, she has no choice but to walk into it. She needs that money. Without it, she's just a fugitive with nowhere to go." "How long?" Brandon asked. "Could be hours, could be days. But she'll make a move eventually. And when she does, we'll be ready." We waited through the night. Torres stayed with us, taking calls, coordinating with her team. Frank was stable. The recordings were secured in multiple locations, and Palmer was now the FBI's most wanted fugitive. As dawn broke over Portland, my phone rang. "Unknown number," I answered. "Cooper," Palmer's voice. She sounded tired, defeated. "You win. I can't access the money. Can't run. Can't hide. It's over." "Then turn yourself in," I said. Torres was already tracing the call. Agents mobilizing. "I wanted you to know," Palmer continued, "I never planned for any of this. I was a good agent once, believed in the law, but the system's broken. The criminals always have more money than we do. I just wanted a piece of it. A retirement fund. Is that so wrong? You murdered people," I said. "You were going to murder my son." "I know." A long pause. "I'm sorry. For what it's worth." The line went dead. Torres looked up from her laptop. "Got her. She's at the waterfront. The warehouse where Vincent was supposed to kill Brandon. Full circle. We all went. I know we shouldn't have. Torres told us to stay at the safe house, but we'd earned the right to see this end. All of us." The warehouse was surrounded by FBI tactical teams when we arrived. Helicopters circled overhead. It was overwhelming force for one person. Torres used a bullhorn. "Ruth Palmer, you're surrounded. Come out with your hands up." For a long moment, nothing. Then the warehouse door opened. Palmer walked out slowly, hands raised. No weapon, no fight left in her. Agents swarmed, securing her, reading her rights. As they led her past our vehicle, Palmer's eyes found mine through the window. She mouthed 2 words. "I'm sorry." I didn't acknowledge it. Some things can't be forgiven. The aftermath took weeks to fully process. Brandon and I gave statements to what felt like every agency in the federal government. FBI, Justice Department, the Portland Police Department. Everyone wanted to know every detail of that terrible night at Massimo's. Palmer pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty. Multiple counts of murder, conspiracy, corruption, racketeering. The judge gave her life in prison without possibility of parole. She deep behind bars. Frank Morris recovered from his injuries and received a commendation for his undercover work. He visited us at the safe house once he was released from the hospital, walking with a cane but alive. He and I had coffee, talked about how strange it was that random chance had put us both in that office at the same time. "If you hadn't grabbed that phone from Vincent's body," Frank said, "if you hadn't bluffed Palmer about sending those recordings, she would have killed all of us. You saved my life, Cooper. I won't forget that." "You saved ours too," I said. "We're even." Jack, Sarah, and Danny were granted immunity for their cooperation in the investigation. The prosecutors understood they'd been victims, coerced into helping the Castellanos under threat of death. Danny went back to high school, started seeing a therapist to deal with the trauma. Sarah found a job at a legitimate accounting firm, determined to rebuild her life on honest work. Jack quit bartending and enrolled in community college, studying social work. He wanted to help other people trapped in bad situations, turn his nightmare into something useful. We stayed in touch, the five of us, met for coffee every few weeks. We'd been through something together that bound us in ways normal friendship couldn't match. We understood each other's nightmares, our moments of panic, the way certain sounds or smells could transport us back to that blood-soaked office. Brandon's situation was more complicated. He'd knowingly built software for a criminal operation, even if he'd been deceived initially. The prosecutors wanted him to testify against everyone else in Palmer's network, the lower-level operatives and corrupt officials who were still being rounded up. In exchange, Brandon received probation, community service, and a permanent mark on his record. His tech career was over. No legitimate company would hire someone with his history. The expensive apartment, the exciting startup life, the six-figure salary, all of it vanished like smoke. At first, I thought it would destroy him. The shame of it, the public nature of the trial, his name in every news article about the Castellano case. But something unexpected happened. Brandon seemed relieved. I was trapped in that life, Dad. He told me one afternoon as we packed up his apartment. Even before the Castellanos, I was miserable, working 80-hour weeks, staring at screens until my eyes burned, pretending I was changing the world when really I was just making rich people richer. The money was good, but I hated every minute of it. What do you want to do now? I asked. I don't know. Something real. Something that matters. Maybe teaching. Community college computer classes for people who can't afford the fancy programs. He smiled, and it was the first genuine smile I'd seen from him in years. Sounds crazy, right? Going from six figures to community college adjunct professor. Sounds perfect, I said. I stayed in Portland, gave up my apartment in Phoenix, sold most of my stuff, and moved into a small place near Brandon. We had breakfast together every Sunday morning at a diner near his new apartment. We went hiking when my knee permitted, watched baseball games, did all the things we'd never done when he was growing up because I'd been too busy, too distant, too afraid of really connecting. We talked about his mother sometimes, about the divorce, about all the ways I'd failed him as a father. Those conversations were painful, necessary. Healing doesn't happen without honesty. I blamed you for a long time, Brandon admitted one Sunday over pancakes. For the divorce, for checking out emotionally, for moving to Phoenix and barely calling. You were right to blame me, I said. I made those choices. I was scared of confronting the failure of my marriage, scared of admitting I didn't know how to be a good father to a teenager. So I ran, put distance between us, and told myself it was for the best. Was it? Brandon asked. For the best? No, it was cowardly. I lost years with you that I can never get back. But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere. If you'll let me, I want to spend the rest of my life making it up to you. Brandon's eyes got wet. I'd like that, Dad. 6 months after that terrible night, we went back to the Copper Mug. The bar was under new management, the old owners having fled when their connections to the Castellanos came to light. The new owner, a woman named Helen who'd run a coffee shop for 20 years, had cleaned the place up, added better lighting, brought in a younger crowd. We sat at the bar, same stools where this all started. I couldn't help looking at the spot where Jack had grabbed my wrist, where he'd whispered that warning that changed everything. You thinking about that night? Brandon asked. How could I not? If Jack hadn't warned me, if I hadn't climbed out that window and followed him, you'd be dead. Or maybe the FBI would have caught Palmer eventually, and I'd be fine, Brandon said. We'll never know. No, I agreed. We won't. Helen brought us 2 beers. On the house, she said. I heard what happened to you two here. That's terrible. But I promise, this place is clean now. No mob connections, no dirty cops, just good beer and decent food. Sounds perfect, I said. We drank in comfortable silence, The bar was filling up with the dinner crowd, people laughing and talking, living their normal lives. None of them knew what had happened here, the violence and fear that had started in this very room. "Dad," Brandon said quietly, "I never thanked you, not properly. You could have walked away, could have gone back to Phoenix and pretended you never heard that warning. But you didn't. You risked everything to save me. You're my son," I said simply. "I'd risk anything for you. I know that now. But I didn't before. I thought you'd stopped caring, that I'd burned that bridge when I sided with Mom in the divorce. I thought I was alone." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "That night taught me something. Family isn't about being perfect. It's not about never making mistakes or never hurting each other. It's about showing up when it matters. You showed up for me, Dad. When I needed you most, you were there." I had to wipe my eyes. 67 years old, sitting in a bar, crying into my beer. But I didn't care. I wish I'd shown up sooner. Wish I'd been there for you all along. Not just in a crisis. "You're here now," Brandon said. "That's what matters." We finished our beers. As we left the Copper Mug and walked out into the Portland evening, Brandon put his arm around my shoulders. "Love you, Dad. Love you too, son." The city lights sparkled around us. Somewhere out there, Palmer was in a federal prison. Vincent and his organization were destroyed, and corrupt officials were facing justice. The nightmare was over, but the lessons remained. I learned that safety isn't the same as living. I'd spent decades playing it safe. Safe job, safe retirement, safe distance from anything that could hurt me, including my own son. But safety had made me hollow, turned me into a ghost moving through life without really living. The night at the pub had thrust me into danger I never imagined, but it had also given me back my life. I learned that courage isn't the absence of fear. I was terrified every moment of that night. When I climbed out the bathroom window, when I faced Vincent, when Palmer held a gun to Brandon's head. But I acted anyway. That's what courage is. Fear plus action. I learned that it's never too late to be the father, the person you wish you'd been. Brandon and I had lost years to distance and silence, but we got a second chance. Not everyone does. Every day I wake up grateful that we survived to rebuild what was broken. I learned that sometimes the worst things that happen to us are also the best things. If I'd never followed that bartender, Brandon would be dead. If Palmer had succeeded, if Vincent had won, I'd have lost my son forever. The nightmare saved his life. Life is strange that way. Most importantly, I learned what's worth fighting for. Not money or career or pride. Not safety or comfort or the absence of conflict. The only thing worth fighting for is the people we love. That's it. That's everything. I think about Jack's warning sometimes. Those 5 words that started everything. They're going to kill him tonight. I could have dismissed it. Could have convinced myself it was a prank or a mistake. Could have walked away. But I didn't get out. I went deeper in. And that made all the difference. Life isn't about avoiding danger. It's about deciding what's worth the risk. For me, my son was worth everything. Worth the fear, the pain, the broken ribs and the nightmares. In fighting for Brandon, I found myself again. Found the man I should have been all along. Sometimes the scariest moments lead to the greatest gifts. That terrible night at the Copper Mug, the one that should have destroyed us, ended up saving us both. It gave me back my son. It gave Brandon back his father. It reminded us what really matters. I wouldn't change a thing. So let me ask you something. When was the last time you risked something for someone you love? When did you last choose courage over comfort, connection over safety? Life is short and unpredictable. The people who matter most might not be around tomorrow. Don't wait for a crisis to show them you care. Show up. Be there. Fight for what matters. That's the lesson I learned in a dive bar in Portland, from a scared bartender who had the courage to do the right thing even when it was dangerous. Pass it on. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Let them know it's never too late to rebuild broken relationships, to be brave, to choose love over fear. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of someone in your own life you need to reconnect with, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your stories. And if you found value in what I've shared, please hit that like button, subscribe to see more stories like this, and share it with others who might need to hear this message. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for letting me share this piece of my life with you. I hope it helps you in some way, reminds you what's truly important, inspires you to take that risk, make that call, rebuild that bridge. Life is too short for regrets. Don't let the people you love slip away without fighting for them. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply show up.